More and more you go to the grocery store shelves and they are looking bare.
They certainly are. Well, guess what? You're not the only one starving for food. Food banks are also starving for donations. And this is Chick to Chick.
It seems like every time you go to the grocery store, the shelves are getting more bare. You know, you can tell that the food supply is not getting into the grocery stores fast enough. You know, you can tell that there's a lot of ache and pain out there with people just really trying to feed their families. It's terrible. It's a terrible situation.
I find it to be really frustrating because I have my list, right? I want this, I want that. You want specific things. You know what you want. And then I get there.
They don't have that.
There's no peanut butter.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously.
There's no rice.
Yes.
Like, how do you live without peanut butter?
I couldn't.
It's really frustrating because it's not there, and then you go home and you got to go back. So we're facing difficulty just trying to feed our own families.
And we're just, we're kind of complaining about it. I mean, we'll be okay and we'll be fine. But the point is, there are people who really aren't, because they rely on this food supply, and they rely on people like us who really, they get the canned goods and the things like that, the extras, and they give them to food banks who really, really need it. But if we're struggling, what the heck is happening with the food banks?
Absolutely. Food banks are also struggling and starving for donations because we can't get the food, and there is a trickle-down effect that's affecting these food banks, which brings us to our guest today. Kathy Anderson-Martin is with the Midwest Food Bank. Kathy, thanks so much for joining us today. What is the Midwest Food Bank?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. And Midwest Food Bank, everybody asks that, and they say, we're in Midwest Food Bank, Pennsylvania. That doesn't make any sense. Midwest, you're in Pennsylvania. But the organization was founded in 2003 by a farmer in Illinois who realized the U.S. produced more than enough food, but yet there are people who needed it. So he turned a portion of his barn into a food bank for small ministries and churches in that rural area. And long story short, 20 years later, there are 10 locations throughout the country, Pennsylvania opening the end of 2020. And what we do is very simple. We rescue food by the truckloads and palletfuls, and then we provide it to nonprofit partners who ultimately provide it to people in need. And we provide that food free of charge to our partners.
So talk about the people in need. Who are you helping? And are you finding that your clientele has changed, over maybe the past couple of months to years?
Well, when we opened here in Pennsylvania in the beginning of 2021, that was our first full year in business, so to speak. We were serving 30 nonprofit partners throughout central Pennsylvania, mostly. And now, as I talk to you today, we are serving over 200 partners throughout Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey. And those partners are reporting a 25% on average increase in the number of people coming to them for help. So it's really our business is booming, and that's not a good thing in terms of people who need food, and then our ability to try to get that food and resource it for those partners serving those folks.
Okay, you said business is booming, which we know is not a good thing, and yet your donations probably are not booming. I mean, we struggle, as you heard us talking, that we can't find things at the grocery store. What's going on with you guys and donations, and is this trickling down for the Midwest Food Bank?
So how long do we have to talk?
I know, probably not long enough, right?
Yeah, I know. It's a crazy thing. I don't know if you were aware, but we have this problem called inflation. And, prices are increasing on everything. So, and supply chain issues, as you mentioned, you go to the store and you're out of a product or a brand that you want, or whole shelf spaces are bare. Well, we're seeing that times 10. And basically, so on one hand, we have more and more people who are in need of the food because of inflation and these other issues with the economy, but we're having trouble getting the food we need. So, for instance, you mentioned rice. We couldn't get rice for months in the quantities that we needed, to the point that we had to buy a truckload of rice. Do you know how much a truckload of rice costs?
No. What?
Well, I do. And that's a dinner party conversation that I can share. So a truckload of rice was $13,000. and $3,700 to transport it here. And that's the big problem right now, because a lot of the food we get is free, being rescue, because it's overproduction or whatever. But the cost to transport it, because again, I don't know if you noticed, diesel prices are up and gasoline prices are up.
We didn't notice, Kathy. I did not notice.
I thought maybe this was news for the podcast, but year to date, we're paying 68% more just in transportation to get that free food than we did last year at the same time. So it's really kind of crazy, and the donations aren't there. And I'm talking, we want donations in big, truckloads and pallet fulls, but it's really getting tough.
So you want donations of food, right? But if you're spending money to get food and you're spending money with the high gas prices, can you use, the money, or is that something else that you would want from people, is to donate money?
Yes, absolutely. Because like I say, we get the calls to go get the free food, and free is not free.
No, it's
because
not.
We have to go transport it and warehouse it and so forth. That's my mission, to say free is not free. It sounds good, but we go get that food. We're rescuing it. And that is something that's wonderful, because we get it and pass it on to people in need versus having that food go to a landfill. So that I personally really like, that it's not going to waste. But you're exactly right, Carrie. We need the funds to pay that trucking bill of $2,000 to $3,000 for that truckload of cereal or potatoes or whatever it may be, so that we can get it here and then repackage it and get it out to our partners. So there's a donation of money and even food. People that do food drives, organizations, that's helpful as well.
So how are you making up for this deficit? Yeah. It's the deficit is all over. The deficit that you're not getting the food donations, you don't have the money coming in, and you have more people to feed. How are you getting around this? What are you doing?
We're working harder. We look at overturning every rock that we can, because you mentioned, I said the cost to transport the food is up 68%. There is 13% less food on every truck. So that's, so we're bringing in more and more loads of food. So we're looking everywhere we can at businesses, warehouses, saying, and individuals, and you name it. And because the need is there, and a lot of people are in situations through no fault of their own. So we keep working and trying to share. And that's why we appreciate you so much with letting us share this message, because it's not just Midwest Food Bank, Pennsylvania, or our other divisions. It's food banks and pantries in general. And it's a real cause for concern, not just now, but in the future. We think it might get worse before it gets better.
And it absolutely could. I think something that I never heard of, and you've said it a couple different times now, I want to go back to it, is rescuing food. So tell me about that. I never knew that you would rescue food. Well, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm the only one who doesn't know this, but for anyone else who doesn't, talk to me about the rescuing of food.
So a company might produce something, and there's a glitch in the labeling, or there's an issue, or they overproduce a certain kind of cereal. And, everything's what they call just-in-time inventory. They produce, they get it to the store and so forth. So that's why when you talk about supply chain issues, when there just is a disruption, it just trickles on down and creates more and more problems. So the rescuing the food is, a warehouse might have, I have these pallets, 30 pallets of this kind of cereal. I need to get it out of here because we're producing the new cereal or something else. So they have to get rid of it because they only have so much warehouse space. It's not right or wrong. It's just the way things operate. So they call someone like Midwest Food Bank and they say, hey, can you guys take this? It might be frozen food or fresh food, which even has a shorter shelf life. And then if we can respond and go pick it up, and there again, pay the transportation to do it, it's like a giant rescue operation. But in this case, it's cereal or frozen potatoes or whatever, Nutri-Grain bars or whatever it is, something that we can go get, and then again, bring it back, and then give it to our agency partners, which come in SUVs, box trucks, you name it, because they're small agencies, they're larger agencies, and they're serving people in their communities. So it's a giant, I'm learning so much about warehousing and logistics and trucking. I say things and I'm like, I don't even know how you know that, Kathy, but it's a really interesting thing. And, it's a service to all of us if we can give that to people who need it versus having it go to the landfill. And that's why Midwest was started by a farmer who said, here's the issue, logistics versus quantity.
So it sounds like it's a win-win for everyone in this situation, that you get the food, they don't have to throw the food out, and it's getting to families in need. You said something a minute ago. You said you think this situation is going to get worse before it gets better. How can it get any worse?
Because it can't.
Well,
no, stop.
I'm sorry. Should I go now? Goodbye. Thank you.
Oh, we've lost her.
My friends have all told me I'm not very fun anymore because I'm just saying, guess what I learned today? So I'll share it with your audience. But right now, the things we're buying, and we all go to the grocery store and we're seeing like ketchup. I went to buy, I'm like $5-6 for ketchup. That's crazy.
Seriously? Yeah.
Yes. But we're hearing there's a tomato issue and there might be a shortage of tomatoes. So the farmers, as they're telling us, the things they're producing, the things you're eating now were produced at lower price points, when they were growing things, paying less for fertilizer, less for diesel and whatever. So now they're paying more, but those products that they're harvesting now haven't hit the supply chain, if you will, or our tables yet. So those are things we're hearing. What happens, I don't know. I can't predict, but it does sound like we are facing additional inflation. August food inflation was 13%, the cost of food. And again, it's now starting to affect more and more people, not just those who maybe were chronically in need, but other people that are working poor, if you will. Yeah. People that have jobs, but they're stretched really, really thin.
Yeah. So we talked about fundraisers, the need to have them. You do have one coming up. Tell us about it.
Yes. Well, we are hosting October 13th, something called Midfest, a harvest celebration. As I mentioned, the roots of Midwest Food Bank are a farmer who started it in his barn. And we wanted to pay homage to our farmers because our local farmers, when we talk about supply chains, I'm passionate about we need to support that local farmer and those folks who are feeding us locally. And so we are doing that through and to have a fundraiser as well. So Midfest will have music and farm to table meal at Greystone in Dillsburg. And we're honoring our farmers and we're thanking our farmers. And the event will include a farmers market with local farmers that guests, certainly they bought a ticket or sponsored that benefits us, but they can buy local goods and produce and products that have been produced locally. And so it helps us and it helps the farmer. And we're very excited because the event is sold out and it's brand new. So that's very, awesome. Very cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. So quickly, as we wrap this up, if people want more information about the Midwest Food Bank, whether they want to donate food, cash, or perhaps volunteer, where can they get that information?
The best thing they can do is go to our website, which is midwestfoodbank.org/Pennsylvania. As I mentioned, there's 10 divisions. So you want to go to the Pennsylvania site. We're in need of always donations, projects, food, and volunteers. We are very volunteer driven. We're independent, faith-based. So, we really rely on people and groups that come out and help us do the work. So, give us a call and we love to plug you in.
And Kathy, thank you for coming on to provide all of this information and that upbeat message. We just love the fact that it's going to get worse before it gets better.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Kathy.
Well, now you have a little insight into what it means to rescue food.
I didn't really know that. Yeah. I honestly didn't know. And it's good to know that places, like Midwest Food Bank exist so that they can do those things. And we surely hope that all the food banks are going to be able to get the support that they really need to help those who are in need. And we appreciate you being with us as always. And head on over to our YouTube page, Chick to Chick YouTube. Click the like button and subscribe. Till we're back to chirp about another topic.